In this challenge review, we're going to solve the resume skeleton challenge. And to do that, we need to start off by getting a reference to our player. So we're going to basically say here, protected transform. And actually, we can actually just grab the player script. So we can say protected player, and then we'll say underscore player, or just player, since it's protected. And using void init here, we'll go ahead and we'll say that our player is going to be equal to GameObject.find. And we're going to find an object by its tag. So GameObject.find object, find GameObject with tag, and the tag is going to be player. Let's save this. Let's go to Unity. Select the player. We want to make sure that it has a tag of player. Right now on the top in the inspector here, tag is untagged. If we open it, we have a predefined player tag. Save your scene. Let's hop back into the script and see here what this error is. Cannot implicitly convert type Unity Engine GameObject to player. So here, once I find the player, I then need to get the component that I want, which is my player component. So now we have a reference to our player. Save that. Now that we have a reference to the player, we can then check for the distance between the player and the enemy. So to do this, we're simply going to create a variable that's going to store the distance. So we have float distance equals vector3 dot distance, and that's going to give me the distance between two positions. So here I'm going to say transform dot position as well as player dot transform dot position. That's going to return the distance in units of how far the player is from the enemy. Next, we're going to say if distance here is greater than 2 units, so 2.0f, then what do we want to say? We're going to say is hit is now false, and then here in combat, we're going to say anim is combat, or anim dot set bool, and we're going to say in combat is now false. Because now we're no longer in combat, the player walked away. Let's save this, hop back into Unity, and test it out. Run the game. Okay, let's go ahead and hop over here to our skeleton. I'm going to attack it, and I'm going to walk back over here, and there we go. As you can see, he's performing just exactly as he should. Let's go ahead and hit him again. He's going to stay in idle as long as we're within distance, and as soon as I walk away, he's going to go ahead and transition. Now it looks like there is an issue here. So his in combat is still set to false. I'm sorry, it's still set to true here in the preview of our animator view. So let's see here why that is. So if we open up our enemy script, here if distance is greater than 2, so let's see here what it thinks the distance is when it's in its idle position there. Here we're going to go ahead and say debug.log. We're going to get the distance. All right, let's go ahead and print out what the distance is. Let's save this. And it could be a local position issue. I believe I'm getting the distance of their world positions. We may want to grab their local positions. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and run it. Let's head over here. Right now you can see here distance is super. Okay, so look at the distance here. Right now we're 20 units away. We are clearly not 20 units away. So let's go ahead and update the code to resemble distance in local space. So open up the enemy class here. And instead of vector3.distance transform.position, we're going to say transform.localPosition and player.transform.localPosition. Save this, and let's head back into Unity. Okay, go ahead and run it. Let's go ahead and check out our skeleton here, And now you can see here, so distance here is still quite large. And actually, now that I think about it, guys, it's all of the distances. So if we actually pause this, it's including not only the skeleton, but it's including the moss giant and the spider. If we actually look into our console, our player is only distance of 1 unit. So that is more correct. So now let's go ahead and try and test this out and get the same result. If I attack him, he's going to stay in idle. And if I walk over here, so let's see here. It looks like the distance between us is still very low. So here, we need to get more precise with it. So let's open up the enemy script here. And we're going to say distance. And let's go ahead and append another bit of text on this that says distance. And we'll say 4. And let's go ahead and say transform.name. That way we know which enemy this is the distance for. So we're just appending it. Save that. Let's run it again. Okay, and let's go ahead and get the distance here for our skeleton. So here we have distance for the skeleton. And as you can see here, if we pause this, what is the current distance for the skeleton? So one thing here is actually, okay, here we go, skeleton. I'm actually not seeing the skeleton here in the logs. Okay, here we go, skeleton enemy. All right, so right now we are about 7 units away. So let's go ahead and walk up to it. All right, and let's go ahead and pause it again. Let's see where we are with the skeleton. All right, so for the skeleton, we are now 0.76 units. Okay, so let's go ahead and attack. It's going to be in combat. I'm going to go over here. And now in combat should be triggering to false, but it's not. If we pause it, how far away are we? So currently from the skeleton, which I don't see it printing out as frequently for some reason. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and clean up the logs here. I want to know just the skeleton. And this is a great example of how we can get the distance for just the skeleton using our class inheritance system. Let's go ahead and open up our skeleton and go into our enemy class here. And let's go ahead and just comment out. Let's remove this part here. We're going to keep the distance calculations going. However, what we want to do now is we're going to calculate the distance to print out for just the skeleton. So to do this, what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new method above our damage function. We're going to call this public override void movement. And we're going to override the parent movement script. So we're going to call base.movement so that it does its traditional movement. But after it does that, we're going to extend it to use our code. So here we're actually going to get the distance again. We're going to say float distance. Float distance is going to equal vector3.distance. And then we're going to get the distance between the player.transform.localPosition and us, which is transform.position. The transform.localPosition. Once we have that, we're going to say debug.log. And we're going to say distance plus whatever the distance is. We'll append that. Now this code is only going to execute on our skeleton. So if we save that and head back into Unity, let's go ahead and run it. We should be able to get a more clear reading to figure out what is going on, because basically this in combat bool is just not going false. So here we are. Our distance right now is 1.4. I'm going to attack it. And it looks like what's happening here is our distance function stops calculating. Is that right? So it's, okay, so look what happened here. After we damage, the distance stopped calculating. So why would that be the case? So let's go ahead and look into our enemy class here. And what does the logic say here? It says if hit is false, otherwise we're running this code here. Let's see here, if distance is greater than 2. The damage function is somehow causing it all to freeze. Here we say damage, we say anim.setTrigger hit. We're then saying is hit equals true. And then set bool in combat to true. And that gets called one time. So here, our enemy update method is basically seems to have paused from this movement code here. And it looks like it could be because of this. Check this out. If anim.getCurrentAnimatorStateInfo is named idle, we tell it, hey, if you're an idle, don't do anything. So what we need to also include here is to say, hey, if we're an idle and in combat is true or in combat is false, then don't do anything. So here we're going to say and in combat, we're going to say in combat parameter. So we're going to need to say anim.getBool, and we're going to say in combat equals false. So here, if anim.getCurrentAnimatorState, so if you're in the idle state and in combat equals false, then what do we want to do? Return, because that means we're at point A or point B and we're just idling. Otherwise, we're going to call our movement code. So let's save this and we should be okay to go now. Go ahead and let Unity compile, and we'll rerun this. All right, here we go. Let's go check out our player, our enemy. Go into attack. In combat is true. It's an idle. I'm going to walk away, and it's going to go back to its walk. Let's try it again. Attack. I'm going to walk away, and now it's back to its normal routine. All right, so that wraps up how to get this guy resuming action after being attacked. In the next video, we're going to take a look at having it attack back. I'll see you then.